Well, hello everyone, it's Pete here. So it's about time I did a review of this, my Arrma Outcast 4S. I've had this a few months and I've definitely got some opinions about it. In the description I'm talking about the fact there's some kind of problem with this. I'm not going to keep you waiting for that. I'm not going to be one of those videos who say, oh, I'll tell you about that later, like and subscribe, all that, you know, wasting all your time. Would be nice if you liked and subscribed. Get on with it! Okay, I'm getting on with it. Now I'll talk about the good things about this truck, and there are a lot of them in a minute, but the main problem I've got with this is to do with the steering. Now with my Arrma 3S cars, the steering was a bit weak and a bit slow out of the box, so I changed the servo on those to the JX Eco Boost, and that was sort of job done with those ones. Now I did the same thing with this, but it's still kind of difficult sometimes to get it to point in the right direction. Now a lot of it's to do with the fact that it's got a very short wheelbase and very grippy tyres, so anytime you put the power down, the front wheels are either off the ground or barely touching it. So you sort of have to drive this a little bit like a big Tammy Lunch Box. Now with the Tammy Lunch Box, the front wheels are quite often off the ground, but it only takes a little lift off the throttle and a turn of the wheel and you can spin it around quite easily. The fact that the Lunch Box is two-wheel drive and the tyres aren't very grippy makes it easier. Now with this Outcast, it's pretty heavy and the tyres are grippy like I was saying, so you have to do quite an extreme manoeuvre sometimes to get it to change directions. If you look at it running on the grass here where you've got quite a bit of grip, you can see you've got a turning circle of this when it's at slow speed. As soon as you put the throttle on, it's almost going straight all the time. In this clip the steering is still fully right, and this is how big the turning circle is with the throttle on. If you look at my big rock here, it's got a longer wheelbase and smaller wheels. You can see you can easily throw the back out with the throttle, so it's much easier to manoeuvre around in a small space. On a more slippery surface like this sand, the Outcast is a bit easier to throw around. You can see though that you still need quite a big area to manoeuvre this thing. If you get a bit of a run up you can kind of slide it around the corner, but if you're trying to go around in a small space it's not very easy. I did manage to get it sliding a few times here. If you compare it again to the big rock, you can see this is very easy to throw around. If anything, the big rock's a little bit too tail happy, but you can at least use it easily in a small space. I quite often do this shot where I drive the car around myself, and it was easy to do with the big rock, but I wasn't really able to achieve this with the Outcast. Now as an example of the manoeuvrability of the big rock compared with the Outcast here, I was doing my little challenge to go up the hill and round the tree and back down again. Tried it a few times with the Outcast and didn't manage it. I tried it with the big rock and I did, although I forgot this log was here. I won't forget that again. Now I can hear people saying, well, it's a stunt truck, it's not really meant for cornering, but you do need to be able to get it around to aim it at the jump in the first place. And if we're talking about stunt trucks, I think the Granite might be an all-round better bet. It's sort of easy to manoeuvre and you can backflip it off nearly anything. So like I was saying with the Outcast, it's best to run it on a loose surface, and it was really good up in the forest here. It was slippery enough that I could actually steer it, and it's great fun just to blast it over the terrain. Also the ultimate low traction place we found was this icy lake. It was pretty good here too. So a lot of the steering issues are down to the short wheelbase. It's worth saying there is the 4S Kraton available, which is almost identical but with a longer wheelbase. So in theory the front wheels should be touching the ground a bit more often and you might be able to steer it easier. One plan I have got is to get the longer chassis and the Kraton body and see if I can make this into a 4S Kraton and see if that works better. Now the other issue I've got with the steering is the looseness of the servo saver. This is mounted directly to the servo and it's got a metal spring inside it. It does feel reasonably good, but then when you've got the car all powered up and you try and turn the wheels, it's not very difficult to turn them. This isn't the servo moving, this is just the play in the servo saver. I think if there was a higher torque version of this it'd be better as long as you had a high torque servo to go with it. I did try a Tammy high torque servo saver on this and it did seem better initially, but then it actually bent the spring on that, so it wasn't really up to the job. So if you do know of a robust higher torque servo saver than the stock Arrma one, then please let me know in the comments. So I think that's all I've got to say about the steering, and it's sounding like I don't like this, and that's not true. There is an awful lot to like about this one. So Though as previously mentioned, it's got a very short wheelbase, and what that means is you can do a lot of wheelies. There is a lot of fun to be had just running this up and down and seeing how long you can keep a wheelie going. Also with the big wheels and the short wheelbase, it makes it very steerable in the air when you're doing jumps. Like I was saying earlier though, this one isn't as easy to backflip as a Granite is. Now a good thing about this compared with the 3S cars is the amount of upgrades they give you with them. So with this you've got metal gears, you've also got very chunky suspension arms and things like that. The best thing I think is the shocks you get with this. These big bore shocks are amazing. I haven't had to adjust them out of the box, whereas the 3S cars I did change the shocks in the end because they weren't very good, the plastic ones. Also I'd say in general I haven't had to tinker with this as much as I did with the 3S cars, where I had to go through and change oil weights and things like that and tighten things up and thread lock things. This does seem to be better built out of the box. So all in all I would recommend this, so long as you're running it in an area where the steering issues aren't too much of a problem. If you don't mind doing a few upgrades, you might be better off with a Granite and changing the shocks and a few bits. There are of course the other 3S cars to consider. I think the Big Rock's a really good all-rounder. It does run a lot better though if you put Granite wheels and tyres on it. The stock wheels and tyres are a little bit narrow and it tends to fall over them a little bit too easily. If you're interested in the 3S range, then I've done various videos about maintaining and modifying them. Also there's an Arrma 3S buyer's guide which might help you find which one you like the best. It's worth saying that the 3S and 4S cars are very strongly built and quite easy to maintain. The other way to go would be to look at the Arrma 6S cars. Now these are really good, but they're quite heavy, really fast. You do need a big area to run these as well. I did do a video comparing the 6S Kraton with the Big Rock. The conclusion was similar, that you can run the Big Rock in a smaller space. So in summary, this 4S Outcast is a really good truck, lots of nice upgrades, but if I'm honest I probably still like my 3S trucks the best. If this has been in any way helpful, then please press the like button and maybe leave me a comment and all that stuff. Thank you ever so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.